She's a piece of shit. In this city years ago, I used to represent a whole bunch of pimps and hoes, and I know a hoe when I see one. So I'm not surprised at what she does. She's 60 years old, and I think listening to her word salad and the way she talks, I think she's got early onset dementia and also some problems with menopausal complications. That's that, you see, today is going to be tomorrow, so since it's going to be tomorrow, today we have tomorrow, which is why we are now. Like, what did you say?
I grew up understanding the children of the community are the children of the community. I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context.
I do believe that we should have rightly believed, but we certainly believe that certain issues are just settled. Certain issues are just settled.
Clearly we're not.
No, that's right, and that's why I do believe that we are living, sadly, in real unsettled times.
Xi Jinping, is he supposed to be impressed? She's doing word salad. Well, we're here today because China and the U.S. are here today, and that's why we have to agree on what we're doing here today. Like, fool, what did you just say? You know, did you say anything?
The Caribbean nations, island nations, in the Western Hemisphere, that is where the Caribbean is. We are also in the Western Hemisphere. They are our neighbors. And talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
They have something in mind, but they cannot cognate getting all the way through it, which is why she's famous for this word salad garbage, and she doesn't make a bit of sense. I think since she's only 60, she's actually on a worse track than Biden was. Biden is 20-some years older than her, and he has been senile for a long time.
And if Putin attacks a NATO ally, we will defend every inch of NATO which the treaty requires and calls for. We'll have something that we do not seek. Make it clear, we do not seek. We do not seek to have American troops fighting in Russia or fighting against Russia. And if Putin attacks a NATO ally, we will defend every inch of NATO which the treaty requires and calls for. We'll have something that we do not seek. Make it clear, we do not seek. We do not seek.
Now, what I said he was going to do is he probably wants to claim fame for being the first person to see to it that a woman got to be president. I think, and my major at UCLA was political science, my analysis is they picked the weakest somebody they could as a figurehead, somebody who had some apparent minority status, which she does not. And what goes on is that you get her, everybody that is everybody would be afraid to go against her because of what she can pass herself off as. And then you get somebody that's easy to control because she's lazy, because she is becoming incoherent, and because she's always tried to do the casting couch to get where she wants. I was in California. She lacked professional competence, and she worked on it by hiking up her hemline when she needed influence rather than researching. And she had a reputation amongst the trial lawyers of being lazy. She'd just hike her skirt up and try to flirt. And she wasn't that good in the courtroom, if not pretty bad in the courtroom. Now, the problem is that'll get somebody to a certain level quickly, but you can't get past that level if you don't have competence and talent. So my thing about it is if I'm crude about it, in this city years ago, I used to represent a whole bunch of pimps and hoes, and I know a hoe when I see one. And I say this, I don't care, women, you do what you want to do if you want to have recreational sex, but when you do the casting couch or anything else for professional purposes to get paid or advance, you a hoe. And she's old hoe. And the problem is what is she supposed to do? Somebody, one of her sycophant slaves comes up and unwraps her in a carpet naked at Putin's feet, and he says, oh yeah, I'm Julius Caesar. He said, no, I got better stuff here already. Plus, I don't want you anyway, you old woman. And then she was everybody's favorite Hindu Indian prosecutor and attorney general and senator, and now she becomes black. But, you know, I met her daddy, fine gentleman, Professor Harris. And the problem with her being black is Professor Harris says he's Caucasian, mixed Irish and Hindu. He doesn't have any black ancestors, but his Irish ancestors owned a lot of slaves in Jamaica and had them to work on plantation. So if mama is on the birth certificate listed as a Caucasian, daddy says he's a Caucasian Hindu and has no black ancestors, how did she get to be black? Now, a little side story. When I had my show, let's say this has been 26 years ago, I had two beautiful women that I thought were sisters on the show. And they laughed one time when we all went to a happy hour and said, you think we're black, don't you? Yeah, aren't you? No, we're Hindu. One of them said, my mother's a Hindu Brahmin caste, my father was Hindu warrior caste. He took an oath to the family to protect her. They fell in love, eloped, and now we got a death warrant on us. We can't go back to India. So, yeah, and then they gave me two books. The guys were Hindu, and they were very dark, but they cut their hair off close, grew beards, and started dressing and acting black, and they got financial aid. One of them, I think, went through medical school that way, masquerading for being black. Somebody else did it, so she went to Howard. And by the way, she told one big lie when she was talking about she got bust because of something Biden did when she was running against him. Well, the yearbook that she put out there that you can still get online from her high school in Canada shows she went from kindergarten through 12th grade in Canada, never went to school in the United States of America. She was born, by the way, in the same hospital that my ex-wife was born in, the same 12-month period, and my late mother-in-law was in fact a pediatric nurse in that hospital when Kamala was born. And the birth certificate that she has is interesting because the confusion comes from a mistake. On the birth certificate, it lists the mother's race as Caucasian, national origin into India, and religion Hindu. For the father, it does not list national origin. It does not list religion. It does not list anything about that, but where it says race, they put national origin in, Jamaica, by mistake. Now, if you've ever been to Jamaica and you go over to St. Elizabeth Parish, you see all the high, bright, and white that live in Jamaica. So I've got a good friend retired from law enforcement. He has a white wife, blonde-haired, blue eyes, but she was born in Jamaica. Her parents were born in Jamaica. One's blonde and blue-eyed, the other one's red-haired and gray-eyed, and they happen to be related to the King of England because they're aristocrats in England, but they were born in Jamaica. So if you go over there, you see people from Hong Kong, Singapore, New Zealand, Australia, Kenya, South Africa, you name it. It's part of the British Commonwealth and nobody needed a passport and you could just go in and out. So it's not unusual. You're not black just because you're from Jamaica, and they have a whole lot of white people that never left, and their ancestors owned a lot of slaves. The Maroons went up into the hill country and got themselves free back in the 1840s, but, you know, other than that, it is what it is in Jamaica. So just because you're from that country does not mean you are of the black race. So the problem is why don't you go get your daddy to give you an affidavit that you have a black ancestor? And since the only possible claim you have is through your great-grandmother, who he says was a Hindu house servant that just happens to be swarthy, where'd you get your blackness from? See, you're faking it again. And I say this after 50 years of experience, the worst human beings you will ever find are career prosecutors. Something slimy about them. They are so turned off by humanity and everything else. They don't care. They're trying to win the game. It is just play to them. They don't give a damn about the people they represent. They just want to win. So they lie, cheat, steal to win the game. And that brings up the other thing, where the Supreme Court of California ordered her to produce the evidence that was exculpating to somebody sitting up on death row that she had hidden. They did that over and over and over again with her hiding this evidence, because what she did in San Francisco and when she got over California is she essentially had somebody else doing it, and she was just a political figurehead. So when you come into this situation here, Putin, you know, Russia, Ukraine, those are serious things. They have a lot of nukes. You've got Xi Jinping, and China's got one hell of a huge army, air force, nukes, computer systems, and so on. What is your experience in international diplomacy? You got made the representative of the country to handle the foreign affairs. You failed so badly they yanked you out when you were actually the boss in charge. The borders are, you just complete abject failure to that. Your only appearance down there was to sit in a chair in the desert while they interviewed you, trying to be cute, flashing your pearls, you know, and you didn't do your job.
Come to the border. The other side will tell you she wasn't a border czar. I'm going to tell you they didn't say she didn't have the border responsibility given to her by the president and dealing with the root causes, so to speak, when it happened. They're now revising history. You can't unring the bell. She was assigned it. She said she was going to do it. She didn't come to the border.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, you know, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making.
And I've never seen such a salacious mess as I've seen out of her. I think of One West Bank. I had some pretty good properties out in California at one point in time. And they got caught up about 15, 16 years ago, like a lot of people did, in that mortgage bundling scam stuff that was going on. And there was a bank called One West Bank responsible for it, which was owned by George Soros. The Mnuchin that you have out of the Obama administration was Mnuchin, who was the CEO of One West Bank. Well, there were approximately 1,200 counts of indictments returned against Mnuchin and One West Bank in various counties in California. Well, Mnuchin and Soros financed and arranged and sponsored Kamala to run for Attorney General of California. They got her elected. She got in, and using the authority she had, she promptly consolidated all 5,200 counts and dismissed them. And a couple of weeks later, Soros sold One West Bank for $4.2 billion. So after that, they got together and got her finance and got everything organized and made the connections for her, and she got elected to U.S. Senator. Willie Brown made the initial contacts and arrangements so she could get elected as district attorney for San Francisco. She didn't do a very good job. She had a reputation for giving out the stiffest sentences in the United States of America for simple possession of marijuana in San Francisco, for God's sakes. But it was only to young black men. She's not a parent, never had any children, but she went off on this campaign to lock parents up, some of whom actually were shown to have dropped their children off at the school, but they played hooky, so she was putting them in jail. See, that kind of philosophy, or you've got a serial killer who's got 6 victims, and the families are writing protest letters to her, not hurry up and do something, not why are you giving the guy such a light deal, is why don't you let this man plead guilty to life without parole instead of delaying it for 7 years, trying to make political hay out of it.
So I know how to make a mean pot of greens. In fact, people used to ask me to make greens for them for Christmas. One year, I had so many that I had to wash that we ended up washing them in the bathtub.
So how do you make your greens? Do you put turkey in them? Do you
Bacon.
Put nice. My grandma
I do
used to
bacon.
Put bacon. She's put
Garlic.
vinegar.
I put white vinegar.
Yes.
I do. So I start with, I slice up my garlic. But no, first I chop up the bacon
fry it.
and get all that fat going. Then I put garlic,
Yeah.
some chili peppers,
Yes.
and then a lot of water and a little chicken stock. And I let it go for a while
Flowers.
before I put the greens in. And then, right, so you get that going and all that flavor. And then I put the greens in for a couple hours. Then I do vinegar. And then I cheat and do a little Tabasco.
No, that's okay.
Yeah,
My
but
grandmother-
Tabasco of all, like I like Louisiana hot sauce, but Tabasco has that right amount of vinegar.
tang
Yeah,
on it, yeah.
and that's how I do my green.
I see why you get invited every year.